everybody, and welcome back to an awesome episode of Indie Corner Radio. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody. I'm here with Brett Bentman. Right? Is that how you say your name exactly?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, I wrote Brentman by accident, and I think that was a typo, like it corrected me, like autocorrect, and I just didn't fix it when I did the
That's
Zoom. And so I was like, wait a minute, that's not, let me double check this. So yes, Brett is a filmmaker from Texas, I want to say.
yeah, we are in the DFW area.
Nice. So do you go to Texas Frightmare?
I know what it is, but I don't think we've ever been to it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've been to it 4 times, I think. And I'm from Virginia. I've come out there a few times for a couple of the conventions. It's pretty
Yeah.
packed, you know.
Yeah, it's a big one. I know like a couple of the actors we've worked with are involved with it or have, booths or signings. Like Billy Blair, I think is one off the top of my head that always attends it.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, I met Billy there, but like he also came to another convention of mine, Blood on the Beach. So back in Virginia, back in like 2013 or something. Like,
I
it was a
got you.
while ago. You know, uh, feels like a while ago at least. I mean, it's over 10 years, but the time has gone by so freaking quickly.
It
Um,
does. It flies, man.
yeah. So when did you get your start directing?
Um, I started screenwriting was the first venture for me. And that was kind of back in college. I had a roommate in my fraternity that was his sister was involved with Steven Spielberg in some way, shape, or fashion. Like she was like an assistant casting person for him. And so we'd watch a lot of movies in the frat house, of course, and stuff like that. And so I got into writing them and wasn't very good at it. And then, learn that you have to read screenplays to really be good at writing them, because I wasn't going to go to school for any of that stuff. And so I would just start reading scripts of movies that I liked, and they were mostly like Tony Gilroy and Steven Soderbergh and guys like that. One that stuck out with me is I remember I read the Born Identity screenplay and was like
Hmm.
blown away by it because the way he would write the action was like unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so I
I,
started shaping my action like a Gilroy script.
nice.
Um, and then it kind of morphed into short films, and I was kind of partnering with a guy in Austin on a bunch of shorts, and then eventually one day he was like, "Hey, why don't you try directing one of these?" and made me sign this little fake contract that was like, you're going to write and direct your own. It was like some stupid vampire thing. And so I got into that. And then it just kind of, dozens of short films, which teach you how not to make a movie. And then you get your big break in directing a big one. And usually your first one also teaches you how not to make one. And then it just kind of morphed into what it is today.
Oh yeah, I'm sort of the same way because I'm a screener as well. And when I started out, I mean, when I first started, I was like what 12 or something, and I was writing things like it looked like plays.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I learned that there was an actual format for it, and I would read stuff like Tarantino's scripts that are around and Kevin Smith stuff. So that was more like my stuff. I could
Yeah.
see where our sort of our sort of differences in a way are,
Sure.
but I'm sure they sort of cross paths.
Yeah, absolutely.
I still like Gilroy, and I love Soderbergh, all of them. And so I love that. Like I love that you got your start by reading Born Identity, and it sort of shaped the way that you write action. Was
Hmm.
action always something you were drawn to as far as genres go?
Not really, I mean, you know this. This was like pre-YouTube age.
Hmm.
So, um, if you wanted to learn how to do something, you had to figure it out. You couldn't just go to YouTube or Chat GPT and say, how do I write a screenplay? So I don't even think Final Draft was around. If it was around, it was in the very early stages where it was still complicated and, pretty robust and difficult to navigate. So, I would just use Word and,
Hmm.
but back to your question, like with action, I don't think I've even made an action movie, to be honest with you. I think, my love of screenwriting is in the dialogue, and that's what I focused on. So to read a script that was so heavy on dialogue, but also wrote action in a way that made you feel like you were in the scene, I was like, man, I can't do that. I need to copy this kind of style until I learn how to do it on my own. I think the dialogue I was always good at. It was always the action and so the easiest way to read, like horror, I think like Dawn of the Dead was one of the first horror screenplays I really got into because the action was written so well, like you could see it. And I just didn't know how to do that. I knew how to speak and how people would talk, but I didn't know how to put the reader in that situation. So, and I'm sure if I was, interested in comedy, which I was because I was kind of immature and stuff back then, in the early Todd Phillips days, but I'm sure I would, read something like Mallrats or Jay and Silent Bob and learn how to put somebody in that comedic moment.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting thing because some movies don't have any comedy in it whatsoever, and some
Yeah.
have a little bit of it and whatnot. And to learn how to do comedy right, because it is an art form in a way in itself. Like telling a joke, you need to have that punchline, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like, I'll tell a joke, and if nobody laughs at it, I told it wrong. If it's a real good
Sure.
joke, right?
Yeah.
So if or if it's a bad joke, then I get it. Like, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of bad jokes out there. There are a lot of people who think that they can tell or can make jokes. But but that's the thing. If you tell it wrong, it won't be funny. If you
Yeah.
write a action scene wrong, you can still have action in it, like,
Sure. Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So I think comedy is a lot harder. Have you done like a straight up comedy?
We did one. It was called the Pickleball Murders, and it
I
was
saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty funny. If talking about comedy, the thing for us was pickleball was really hot at the time. So our distributor was like, "What about a pickleball movie?" I had always wanted to do something in the vein of Clue, not really Knives Out because I knew at our budget we couldn't get Knives Out, but we could get Clue. We could get a goofy, zany bunch of characters together that are being killed off. And in this scenario, if you lose a pickleball game you get shot. And
Hmm.
so, but my thing with comedy, and I think my wife, Tiffany, who owns B22 is films, is like what we think is funny necessarily
Hmm.
is not funny to most people. So when we did the pickleball murders, it was like, okay, let's throw everything at the wall and just see who laughs and who doesn't. And to your point, a lot of it was just the comedic timing. Um, God, he's going to kill me if he ever sees this. I can't remember the gentleman's name that starred in the movie. Garrett. I think it was Garrett. He was so good at like selling the joke because even if it wasn't funny on set, his reaction made you laugh and therefore you could kind of cover for the joke being off colored. And my favorite review of the Pickleball Murders was on a Letterboxd where somebody was like, Brett just threw every race and every decree at the wall and just said, we're going to make fun of everybody. So that's the approach we took to it was like, this is funny to us. We're going to make fun of everybody so everyone can laugh, and we're not singling out any one demographic or person or race or sex. Um, but we haven't done one since, so I can't tell you if that really was a successful journey or not.
Well, and to your point, that's sort of the South Park
Hmm.
approach, make
Yeah,
fun of everybody, so you're not well, I mean, so then you're not singling out one group of people because then that's offensive. But what's
yeah,
not offensive is making all these offensive jokes to everybody. Then
sure.
then then
Yeah,
it's just fair,
yeah,
fair game.
yeah.
And so I guess that works for something like pickleball. Pickleball, like I was watching what was I watching? I was watching one of the movies on um shoot one of the shows on Apple TV Plus though.
Hmm.
Jason Segel show that he has on there, and they have pickleball all over throughout the whole
Oh
thing.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was just like, wow, are people still playing this? Like,
Yeah,
and
it's wild. It's wild. I mean, we moved recently to a golf community, which is hilarious to me because neither of us play golf, but we just like the privacy of it and the tranquility of it. It's quiet here, but it's a huge pickleball community, and we play just for fun. And I'm like, I don't even want to go down to the clubhouse and play because these people are wearing knee braces and stuff, and they take it serious, you know? And I'm like, I just want to go out there and paddle back and forth, tell some jokes, you know, and it is a big deal. I mean, we were watching at Tiffany's parents' house. They had like the World Cup of pickleball, and these people are
that's a real
amazing.
thing
Yeah, they're like athletes, and they get drafted, and they're on teams, and they get traded. And so I think pickleball is still on the rise. I don't think it's as hot as it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think like what's still popular, what's not. Because I
Yeah,
mean, I never really played it. My dad has always played racquetball,
sure.
and
Yeah,
stuff. And I mean, he's in his 70s, no, 80s. He's 80s now. Like he just got in there
yeah,
and he's still playing racquetball. It's just nuts. Like to
yeah. Good
me.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so the Pickleball Murders is out and available like for Tubi, right? So people can.
Yeah, it's on Tubi, it's on YouTube, on a couple free channels there, and I think it's on Amazon.
So yeah, I have one of my films, Scary Story Slumber Parties on Kings of Horror. I don't know if you do them or not.
No, I
You
haven't heard of
know,
that one.
Kings of Horror is pretty good. They're. I mean, I'm not just saying it because my movie's on there or whatever. Actually, my movie's on there. I'm not even getting paid for it because the distribution deal kind of
Yeah,
sucked for it. But it's on there, so that's all I care about is like people are
sure.
watching it. I don't ever want to take it down until it has to.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
but that's the thing. Like, people, we have avenues right now. You use ITN as your distribution, which is amazing. You did Wild Eye for a while, if I'm correct.
Yeah, we did one or two. May have done one title with them.
I know you did Apocalypse Road with them,
Yeah, that
and
was that was the infancy of like our company and learning the distribution game, you know, and I can't say that it was a very positive experience that I can remember. I mean, I don't even know how long ago that was now, but um yeah, distribution is a full-time job in just finding out who to work with and who not to. Um, it's
it,
something that if I had to gauge, like, if there was a pie chart of B-22 films, what we spend most of the time talking about, I would say 70% is distribution. You know,
for sure.
the creative stuff to us has become a profession where it's not just a hobby where we pick up a camera and get some friends together and shoot a movie. It's a business. So the creative part sometimes takes a huge back seat to the business part, which is legal, distribution, you know, the future of the business. And that's a huge shift for creative people because you have to literally put your creative brain somewhere else for, you know, a week and work on legal deliverables and work on screenwriting copy, you know, copyrights and all kinds of stuff that you never thought as a wannabe filmmaker you would have to waste your time with. It becomes the one thing that you spend most of your time with.
And
Uh,
money with,
yeah, money too. And maybe that's at an independent level. I don't know how it gets when you're shooting movies for A24 or whatever, but um I just think for us, once it became a business, it really shifted from what kind of creative things can we do to, okay, here's what we're going to do, and how can we get creative on the back end? And that's the big difference between like what we do. When people always ask us, like, how can we be B-22? And you can't. Um, you have to go be who you are. Let us be who we are. We know what works for us. Find what works for you. And what works for
hmm
us is partnering with people that also treat filmmaking as a business. And I mean, I just dare say that we don't really, I don't want to say we don't care about the creative part, but 70% of our time we care about the business,
Well, you
and
have to if you want to stay
yeah,
afloat and keep doing what you're doing
yeah,
and doing as much as you do, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, and that's the big thing. But I want to go back to the wildlife thing because before we started, I told you that I got a couple of your movies and they were one of them was Apocalypse Road, which I was at the Wild Eye table, right, at Texas
Okay.
Frightmare. And the guy that runs or whatever, I don't know if he's like distribution guy or if he's just like part of the thing. I had told him I do like reviews and I do interviews and things like that. And he was like, "Oh, do you want a few of our films? Like, we can give you some." And I was like, "Sure." He's like, "How about this? And how about this? And how about this?" And I was like, "Dude, I don't like doing that because I don't like saying no to films because
Sure.
like free
Yeah.
films is wonderful." But I was like, "Dude, I have to fly home. Like, I can't fit all of this stuff in my back at my thing." So
Yeah.
Apocalypse Road was one of them that they ended up, giving to me, and I didn't watch it until just like yesterday. I watched it
Yeah.
yesterday for the first time. Loved it, by the way. Actually, really for a first time film, I know like from your eyes, you might be
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, this is my first film. Like I see
Yeah.
all the
Gross.
mistakes
Yeah.
and issues that I had with it." But like for me, as like somebody who's seeing somebody's work for the first time,
Yeah.
it's like this is actually really good. Like
Yeah.
you see a lot of people's first time films, and you're like, I might turn it off, kind of
Yeah.
thing or
Yeah.
something and whatnot. But the acting was great. You had two of my favorite Texas guys. You had Billy Blair and you had and Todd Jenkins.
Okay.
Both of those
Yeah.
guys I absolutely adore when I see
Yeah.
them in films and everything. And one of my friends got to work on Bigfoot Wars with
Okay.
Todd,
Yeah.
and
For
stuff.
sure.
So yeah, there's some great Texas, I guess talent out there,
Yeah.
and
There
everything.
is. Apocalypse Road is an interesting story because, that was coming off of my first break in the business was like a big budget feature film. And it was a ton of money and it had names in it. And it was like no clue what I was doing. I was piecing it together. I had a horrible production team and a great crew, but horrible. The names were horrible, except for very few that I'm still friends with today. And the movie, we shot it in West Texas for 3 weeks. It never came out. It's a horrible film. I would never want to put it out. Um, and on the way home from that experience, I always tell the story is I was just like telling Tiffany, like, it can't be like this. There has to be a different way to navigate this. I can't do this again. And so she was like, just write something that you want to write and let's just do it. We got no money. And we raised a little bit of money and we shot Apocalypse Road in pieces or sequences, I called them. And it was 20-minute scripts. And we shot the first 20 minutes, edited it, did all that, put it online for free. And if anyone wanted to see the rest of the film, they would tell us. And it was like an outpouring of, yeah, let's see what happens to these girls. And so we finished the next 20 pages and we did it like in 5 months and put it together. And does it have issues? Yeah. But for a zero budget film with a little bit of money behind it, we were the first team that was we were the first people, and I'm leery of saying that because I'm sure somebody had tried it before us, but we were like, we don't have the money to do a bunch of setups, so how do we shoot this? And Michael, our DP at the time, he was like, let's just have the camera moving 100% of the time. And
Hmm.
that way we can't worry about lights and we can't and we were the first people to put the camera on the Ronin and just go.
That's
If it was
cool.
blurry, tough. We were like, and then, we started seeing a lot of Texas productions doing it. And then, The Revenant and Gravity and all these movies. So I always like to say that we were the first local independent film production company that like was like the camera's going to move 100% of the time.
Hmm.
And so it was a fun movie. And you're right, watching it now, I'm like, ew, gross. I could have, but I mean, it was guerrilla filmmaking at its best. We didn't ask for permission to film anywhere. We drove down to Galveston and just rented this horrible location and we all stayed there. And it was like, just go on the beach and film. And if someone tells you to leave, we'll leave for an hour and come back.
Yeah,
So
that's
it was
guerrilla
fun.
filmmaking, man.
Yeah.
At its
Yeah.
finest. We had somebody like that was in our, in my woods, that claimed she owned the woods, like part of the woods, and
Yeah.
stuff. She had a map, that let you know and all this other stuff and it's trying to and we're just like we're just here to make a movie. Can you just let it, we had to do it
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
closer to our my house and stuff and it worked out fine, but like it would have been cooler out in the middle of the woods and
For
all that
sure.
stuff. And then we shot another one like thinking if in that woods thinking she might come back and she had a
Yeah.
hatchet with her and dogs and everything, but she never, I don't, we never see her again. So she,
That's funny.
you know,
That is funny.
but yeah, but that's the thing. You can, this is what you got to do,
Yeah.
especially when you're first starting out. You got to go out and just, wherever you can shoot something, you
Yeah.
know.
There's a big difference between Tiffany and I preach this all the time. I mean, there's people that talk about making movies and there's people that make movies. And that is the big difference. If you can't stop talking about it, you're never going to make it. Just go do it already, and a lot of people can't do that. They have to talk it to death. And look, if you've got 500K or $1 million, 750 to pour into a movie, you better have time to talk through what you're going to do with your cinematographer and storyboard and all this and that. If you have $20,000 to make a movie, you're going to get out there and make it.
Hmm.
And you're not going to waste 2 months storyboarding. You're going to call your DP and say, these are the shots we need. Let's put it in Excel and go, you know. But
Exactly.
that's just my big pet peeve is the people that just talk a project to death. We get it all the time. We get phone calls from people that have great ideas, and it's like, we're going to talk about the idea. It sounds great. What's next? Well, we're going to raise money. Then we're going to talk for 2 months about how to raise money. And I'm like, guys, we're just talking. In the 3 months we've been talking, we would have had the movie shot. And so I don't, it's probably easier said than done, but it's just our pet peeve is just the constant talk, you
I
know.
mean, I get that, and I totally understand what you're saying because, like, with you and a few other filmmakers, a lot of it's just go out and make it or whatever, um, and especially on a low budget,
Yeah.
or whatever, and especially if you have the resources like the
Yeah.
camera and
Sure.
everything's cheap for you.
Yeah.
For some people like myself, you have to sort of try to raise the money, and it does for bigger projects, it takes a little longer, or
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But that is a lot of talk in the beginning because all you have is a script. You might have people attached, and then, until, and if you have things that they've seen, like you could go to somebody big and say, look what I've done. I've done all these movies,
Yeah.
right? Now we're looking for a bigger budget,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
something.
I,
And
I think, I think to that point, my advice, and I think where people can't see, the trees through the woods is like, everybody has a passion project in air quotes. Everybody has an idea that's $1 million idea. I mean, I have 500 of them. But in reality, they're not worth as much as you think, for a myriad of reasons that you could go through on the distribution side. But what's interesting to me is like a lot of people, including myself early on, thought that the idea that you're pitching is the idea. It is the idea that's going to make you rich and famous and all that. But in reality, that idea is just being able to show someone that you can finish a movie, and the idea isn't even in your head yet. That's what happened to us with like 90 Feet from Home was like we thought Apocalypse Road was the idea. We thought Copper Bill was the idea, or The Night Before. That was it, man. That was the pinnacle when all along it was this movie that we hadn't even dreamt of yet. And those movies that came before it were like high school to college, where you're going to show me that you can go do something for 4 years and make it through, and then we'll let you into the next level. So, my thing is always like, maybe the idea isn't as great as you think, but you should do it to show the next person that, hey, I can do this, and here's the idea is coming. So it's just an interesting thing to me is because I think I've learned the hard way that my ideas are not the greatest. They're not all theatrical movies, but they will teach investors something like, hey, I can do this genre. I think that's
Mhm.
what Tiffany and I are dabbling with this horror movie stuff now, is like we are able to now say to a horror guy, like, hey, we've done 3 of these and they're interesting. Do you want to give us a shot at something else?
Well, I mean, you guys are filmmakers. Like you're not writers, like screenwriters. You're not like you're not trying to be just a screenwriter or something,
Right.
You're
Yeah.
you're out there making movies and whatnot. Because like some people, that's all they do is write screenplays and
Mhm.
everything, and that's all they're doing. They're just writing one screenplay after another screenplay until somebody buys one of them,
Right. Yep.
Filmmaking is sort of different because you have to actually go out and make it and then, have somebody buy it or take it over or
Yeah.
distribute it. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different on some
Absolutely.
ends. I'm sort of both. I'm a screenwriter. Like I want to be both. Like I don't want to be pigeonholed into just being a filmmaker. I want to be a screenwriter for other people as well and stuff like that. That I
Yeah.
think would be a little bit different. Like, and
Yeah.
that way I don't have to raise any of the budget. I just,
Sure.
just sell the script if anyone's interested or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
that is a luxury, you
and
know.
and that's what they're interested in. They're interested in somebody like you who has written a ton of horror films, and can write another horror film,
Right.
just for them, or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, so I think it's wonderful either way. Like whatever you're able to do, go do it, but just
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah. Just go do it. Yeah.
The biggest part is, I mean, one of the biggest parts is finishing the script too, because
Yeah.
that sometimes can take a lot longer than you planned, you know?
For sure. Yeah, screenwriting is I always joke it is a lonely, depressing job because most of the time you're not even on set and everybody's having the fun and you're sitting in your office working on the next thing and that cursor's blinking at you. It's just, you're holed up. And then as soon as you finish a script, you hand it off for notes or whatever, and people just kind of shit all over your script. And you're just like, man, I thought I had something great here. And I got 42 pages of, basically start from scratch. So yeah. And I think that was the one thing that turned me off to screenwriting the most was I want to do what I want to do, but I've got to take all these other notes into consideration.
Mm,
And a lot of times they're from people that don't know the vision that you have for the story. And so, we did a movie called Element back in the day with Michael Ironside and Stephen Michael Quezada, who's a really good friend of
nice.
ours from Breaking Bad. And I wrote that script for John Keyes, and I got to come on set because he was like, "Do you want to come on set?" And I remember looking around like, "What the heck is he doing? Like, this is nothing like what I had written on the page." And then they were like, "Hey, you want to do a scene with Michael? He needs a poker player." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And they're like, "We'll let you have a line." And I was like, I'm not an actor, but sure." So I'm sitting there with Michael Ironside and he's talking. He's like, "Did you write the script?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I thought the script was great." But I could tell he was like, "But this is nothing like the script, you know?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Dude, you're preaching to the choir, you know?" And so that was a huge motivating factor for me to get into more directing too, was like, man, if I'm going to spend 6 months doing this, I don't want someone else to take it and ruin it, you know? Um, Not that everything I write is gold, but I mean, I could have done a better job than what I saw on that set, you know?
hmm
Sorry, John, but it just, it's kind of,
Well, everybody has a different vision, right? And
yeah,
that's,
for sure.
and like you said, and I like what you said, where you're mentioning that like when you write the script, you had your vision and then you give it out to somebody else, but your vision is why you're a filmmaker and screenwriter together.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've done this or not, but I don't think you have directed something somebody else wrote,
I
right?
don't think, I don't think we've done that. I really, have I? Oh yeah, I did do a Western. Honor Among Thieves was written.
Oh,
Jason
okay.
Jason Watson wrote that. And I mean that was fine. That experience was fine. And I think that was the very first Western we ever made because I didn't know how to write a Western and he
Mm,
did, and I was still learning that genre and the lingo and because I'm from New York, New Jersey, and we don't watch Westerns, and so it was like, let's figure this out as we go. And so it's different. You going back to what I was talking about earlier about the business side of things. It's like, I mean, Tiffany probably has a Google folder of 1,000 scripts, probably more than that we get. That I would say of the 5,000 in there, 1,000 of them are really good ideas. They're really good scripts. that with the right budget and the right name would be hits. They would easily, but the market changes so fast of what distributors want and what audiences want that a lot of times even our great ideas are so good in the moment that by the time you get around to production, it's no longer relevant. In 2008 to 2012 or 13, you could make a $10,000 horror movie and throw it on Redbox, and it would be a massive success. I
Hmm.
mean, The Night Before is a perfect example of that. And now they're like, you wouldn't be able to get, pennies on the dollar for that project. So the market changes. So a lot of times, I think people get frustrated with us or with me or with Tiffany or whatever because we pass on their ideas and their projects, but it's not because you're not a good screenwriter, it's not a good idea. It's just not what the market wants right now. And that is a hard discussion to have with a screenwriter, you know.
Because they're creative. You know,
Exactly. Yeah.
they're not there, looking for what's and that does suck because like one
Yeah.
of my writing partners and I have talked about this. Like right now, like I guess really some of the big things are like Christmas movies or
Sure.
thrillers, horror films, things like that. Well, my co-writer wants to do family movies. Well, family
Sure.
movies aren't really big in the market right now and stuff, and it kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
but I'm like thinking, why isn't it big on the market? Because it's like everybody wants to watch stuff with their kids. Like, I don't
Sure.
understand why those aren't more marketable than horror films, but
Yeah.
it's just what it is at the time. Like maybe it'll get marketable later,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
something.
And
Yeah.
and that's the challenge. And I challenge your writing partner and yourself to do the research into because I would dare say that I mean, I honestly think that you could make a really good family movie and make good money off of it right now. You just
Mm.
have to have the right distributor with the right contact at the right streaming platform that could be like, hey, I've got a package of, uh, dog movies where the dogs talk for kids and they would eat them up, but Netflix probably wouldn't be looking for, family-based films, but Tubi might or Zumo might or, so that's my challenge to other filmmakers is like read about the market and read about the Producers Guild and what these people are really looking for. Talk to distributors. They'll talk to you all day. It doesn't mean you have to work with them, but you could always call up any distributor and say, "Hey, what kind of projects are you looking for right now?" They'll tell you because they want them,
Yeah.
and they don't know you may have them. So,
That's the thing, and I mean, there's always this line in like about Hollywood, how Hollywood will never will never say no to you,
yeah.
because they're afraid if they say no to you, you may blow up and become famous, and then what I mean. Then they lost their chance, so they just won't talk to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
anymore. They'll like and whatnot, and I think that's hilarious because I've actually had that happen to me but where I was talking to somebody about acting and something and whatnot and then and I was just going to be a body double kind of thing, stand-in, and all of a sudden they stopped talking to me because they found this stand-in, but they didn't want to tell me that
Sure.
because then that means that I'm gonna feel like I don't they feel like I'm not gonna want to work with them or something like that,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatnot, which is ridiculous. Like,
Sure.
like I'd rather them tell me like, hey, we found another stand-in, but it's the way Hollywood works, and
Yeah.
sort of that's independent too.
Yeah.
Like we don't realize how close Hollywood and independent films sort of are, as
Yeah.
far as like a lot of this goes and marketing too. Like, well, I guess Hollywood is more about what IP they can
Yeah.
leech off of
Yeah.
because, and have you ever thought about trying to work in Hollywood, like as
Oof.
for filmmaking, or is
Yeah.
independent the way you want to go for your
Yeah,
life?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said, if a studio called tomorrow and was like, "Hey, we want to hire you guys. Here's $50 million," of course everything would take a back seat and I would do that. But it goes to the process, like everything that I've known and everything that I've heard from speaking to people that are smarter than me and in the business out west or wherever they are, is that once you get to that level, a film director, unless you're one of the big 10, the Tarantinos, the Nolans, the Spielbergs, those types. And now those names are getting even less familiar with the success of, movies like Longlegs and, Weapons and all. You're getting these new independent guys that are going to be the next big 10. You're not really a movie director at that point. You're basically just running the set for the studio. So you have to decide in your heart, am I okay to relinquish all control to Sony or Marvel or Disney or whoever for that paycheck, or do I just want to be an independent guy where I control my set, my vision, and the studio just puts the movie out for me? Man, that's a tough one. I think for the right amount of money, I would be willing to just run the set for the studio because in the long game, it opens up a lot more doors than independent film does. Or the flip side to that is you look at these young guys, and girls, and maybe if I keep doing what I'm doing, a studio like A24 or Neon picks you up and says, "Hey, we want you to be our next big thing." Because I do personally think that Hollywood cherry picks who they want and makes them famous and successful, whether they're good or not.
Hmm.
And this is a horrible example, and I probably shouldn't even bring it up, but like, I'm not going to say his name, but there's an actor in Hollywood that I cannot stand, and he works all the freaking time, and he has been in blockbuster after block, and I'm like, this guy is not a talented actor. He's an attractive guy. He does a lot of big movies. He works with big A-list talent. And I feel like Hollywood is a perfect example that they've taken him and said, we're going to mold you into the next big thing. If you take the roles we tell you to take and you go to the shows we tell you to go to and you kiss the right butt and all this and that.
Hmm.
And to me, it's like, man, I don't know if I could do that. I really don't know if I could go to those luncheons and pretend I'm interested in whatever he or she has to say. So I don't know, but the bigger picture for us as a studio is I don't really think I'll ever get to that level because I think the future for me and Tiffany is not in making movies. I think it's in something else. And what that is, I don't know. It could be distribution, could be financing, could be, the future of the business with AI. I don't know, but filmmaking is a blessing and it's provided us with very nice lifestyle and we do enjoy it to an extent. But in 5 years, do I think I'm still making independent film? Probably not. But
Really?
that doesn't mean that I'm making Hollywood film. It just means I might be working in some other aspect of filmmaking. Yeah,
R-
I mean it's a beat down, man, to do what we do. I think a lot of people will see it as a huge success and you make good money and you have a nice life. But man, there are mornings where I mean, we wake up and look at each other and we're like, forget it. Let's just go get regular jobs and be regular people. And then you think, well, do I want to sit in a cubicle for the 20 years I have left in the workforce? Hell no. So no, I'll put up with it. But it's not a walk in the cake, or it's not cakewalk, and it's not a walk in the park. And it's I don't think people see that side of it. It can be horrible, and it can be rewarding. And you just have to focus on the rewarding times. Because it's not easy. I mean, people are like, how'd you
Uh,
make 12 movies? And I'm like, I don't know. It was hard, and I don't know if I want to do
I
it again.
I mean, I looked at your IMDb and it said like 60 movies, and I'm like,
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
yeah,
I mean, when you look at that stuff, and because that's like, yeah, that's like 6 to 12 movies a year,
yeah,
and stuff like that. And I love hearing stories where the people talk about how they woke up and they didn't feel good because I've had that moment.
yeah,
Producing my first big short. film, $3,000. I had to beg my freaking mom and dad for that money, and I got the money, and people were treating me like shit, and I'm like, the sound guy was gonna, steal steal the sound, all this crap was happening, and I was just like, at the end of the day, I was sitting at, it was the first Texas Brightmare, I was sitting at it, and I just looked like crap, and one of the actresses that I worked with was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't think I want to do this anymore." I
Hmm.
don't think I want to be a producer
Yep.
anymore. And she
Yep.
was like, well, what are you going to do then? And I was like, be a writer, I guess. Like, because at that time I was just thinking, just easier to write something and give it to somebody else and then, and then
Yep.
let them worry about everything. But then I worked on another movie. I acted in a movie that was an independent short film called Nightmare at Bunnyman Bridge. I had such a great time on that set. Like, just it just all came back. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is why I like doing it. I don't like doing stuff where where I'm in charge and I'm the only one there doing everything. I
Yeah.
want,
Yeah.
I love this stuff. So
Yeah.
I absolutely think that that's how people get back is like they have to get that, you have to get, or if you want to leave, leave. If this is not
Yeah.
for you, I always tell people that,
Yeah.
this is not an easy thing,
No, it's a brutal business. I'm trying to think of recently. I want to think that like Minnie's Midnight Massacre, probably was a breath of fresh air for us. I think we really had a good time on that set. I think the cast really gelled, the crew had a good time, but there were there was like a string of projects before that that we're like, holy shit, like this is just too much, too many, plates spinning in the air at the same time. But a good example is like with our bull shark movies,
Mhm.
the first bull shark was like a blast, like we had so much fun. It was the dumbest thing, and it was like somebody's going to drown. And, the big joke on that set is like we would do something and I'd say cut. And like Anthony and Tiffany or Tom would look at each other and make, what are we doing? Like we're in this lake with a paper mache fin. And,
Right.
but it was fun. And then when we did two and three, that was like, we drove home and we were like, we're done. Like, we don't want to do this anymore. This has been the worst 2.5 weeks of our life. Um, so I agree with you. And then I think sometimes you let that frustration out and then you take a step back and you take some rest and you realize that you're doing something that maybe 0.01% of the population will ever be talented enough to do. So even
Mhm.
on your worst day, you're having a better day than, you know, sitting at a bank, crunching numbers in an Excel spreadsheet. So I think it is a reality check sometimes for me. And I'm a pretty cranky person. Um,
Yep.
I think Tiff's laughing. She's like, yeah. But like I can get real cranky and I can blow my top and then you take a minute and you're just like, okay, well, if I went back to my economics degree, which, is basically like a roll of toilet paper, like would I be any happier doing that? Hell no, but even if you are making more money, it's like the money is not why you do independent film either, but um, it's just I feel you. It's like got to have those fun projects to keep you going.
It's funny. My dad was a professor at William and Mary for economics. So
Really?
yeah, and he was really great at math, and I sucked
Yeah.
at math. So I was never, that was never going to be my
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and that to me is a wonderful thing of like, when a filmmaker becomes a filmmaker or whatever, before then, they sort of know what they want to be, right? Like when I was a kid, I
Yeah.
knew it was going to have something to do with movies.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was going to be an actor, like most people, because I didn't really know what a writer and director was as a kid.
Yeah.
But then you kind of go into that field, and of course you do, like you did you did economics as like this is probably like filmmaking will be fun to do, but I need a real job, real career kind of thing. So you go to
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
I don't know like I've always laughed at sort of economic degrees because I'm just like, what are you planning to do with that though? Like other than
Yeah.
become an economics person, and everything. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, I was thinking at the time, I went to a small college in Florida, Florida Southern in Lakeland, which is between Tampa and Orlando.
Hmm.
And I remember at the time, like Dr. Bias, I remember his name because he used to play basketball with him. But I remember he was just like, you're wasting your intelligence on a business degree. Like you need to be an economist. Like you need to work at the Fed Reserve. And I'm like, yeah, and he's
That
like, but
sounded
it's
great, right?
yeah, and
Like,
he's like, you can make a boatload of cash working up there. And at the time I was like, I want to be in
yeah.
politics. So he was like, that's the way to do it. The banking system. You learn the ins and outs of the American economy. You can win. You can be a and I was like, okay, great. How many people do economics as a major? And he's like, eight. And I'm like, oh shit. Like I just picked like the hardest thing, didn't I? And it was not easy, and I hated most of it. And I had to take like the most amount of credits a semester while all my friends were like goofing off at the frat house. I'm like studying. And I mean, literally, all I use it for is like investments and Excel spreadsheets because Tiffany hates that stuff. So it's like, but I would never be like, I'm going to go back to economics, after all this time. However, I think it is aided in our movie business because I'm more of a numbers mentality and Tiffany's more creative mentality. And so it balances us out, like you said, like she hates math. I'm good at it. She's better at putting together like posts and press and all this. And I hate that stuff. So, you
Really?
know,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I'm with Tiffany. Like
yeah,
that's my thing
she
too.
loves that stuff. I'm
Yeah.
more like, nah.
You know, I mean, well, it takes like a certain kind of person to do a lot of that stuff, different stuff. Like yeah, I'm really bad at the business side necessarily, but I'm learning,
Yeah,
and it sucks because like, we got an LLC for one of our companies and everything, and I let LegalZoom handle that
right.
and
Yeah,
everything because I can't, like, I don't know what to do, so. But we have these we do it and then we kind of have to deal with, you know, the crap
yeah,
of like other stuff and other business stuff that pops up and I just
yeah,
no idea what to do. And so I do have to surround myself with people who that's what they do for a living more or less, is
yeah.
business stuff. Even then I still like it doesn't and nothing it like makes sense to me like all
Sure.
that and everything. So, but I do love that. I love that you're that guy, she's that girl. You guys kind of work together because sometimes, yeah, people are just too like-minded
Yeah,
and there's none of the creative stuff or there's none of the
sure.
business stuff and
Yeah,
everything like that. And I don't think a business can like even Trauma had Lloyd as the creative and Michael Hers as the business side,
yeah.
right? So that worked.
It's a luxury that we have is being able to come at it from both angles because, she can put a production together, she can cast it or work with casting, she can schedule it, she can make sure everybody's housed and fed and paid and all that. And then when the movie's done, she can just kind of move on and I can worry about the legal and the deliverables. That's the funniest part of this whole thing is like a lot of independent filmmakers are like, yeah, I made my movie and I sold it to XYZ, and then they get that email with the deliverables, and they're like, I have no clue what any of this is.
That was me at the beginning. Like that was
Yeah,
me when I first did it. And I was like, wait,
yeah,
that heard the word, but didn't know what it was until
yeah,
I had asked the distributor guy, what do you want from me? Like,
yeah,
and he told me the stuff he wanted and, gave me a list. And I was like, oh, fuck. And he's
yeah.
like, I
It's a
gotta go make
lot.
these. I gotta go make like a poster. I gotta go make, all these different things. But he was only streaming, so thank God, because if he had
Yeah,
I think if it actually was DVD, which I prefer, I want that stuff. I'm a physical media nut
mhm,
myself, so I
yeah,
want to hold like a Blu-ray and a
yeah.
DVD. Are you a
We
big? fan of those?
Yeah, I mean, we were bummed, with Stu at ITN for a while. Every project that B22 did was like a DVD release. It was awesome. I mean, you would go to Walmart once a quarter and be able
Bull
to see.
Shark. I got Bull Shark there.
Yeah, Bull Shark. I remember Copper Bill 90 Feet came out on the same day, around Christmas time in 2020, I believe. I think it was COVID time. But like
Yes, it
Rodeo,
was. Oh my God,
yeah,
because Bull Shark, I was living in LA at the time, and I went right before I went home for the holidays. I went to Walmart to go see what they had, and Bull Shark was one of them.
yeah,
And one of my podcast hosts, Madeline Deering, loves like shark movies, and I think I
yeah,
asked her like I was like, I sent her a picture of bull shark, and she was like, you should get that because
yeah.
it was like $10 or something, you
Yeah,
know.
it was they all came out for a while and then that died off a little bit as you noticed the DVD section getting smaller and
Hmm.
smaller and then it became like, well, they're on Amazon or Walmart.com and so we were always kind of bummed and Stu and I have talked and sometimes Stu's like, should we go back to that? And I'm like, man, I loved buying the DVDs, but I don't think
Tell Stu,
monetarily.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't.
Every
Yeah,
independent filmmaker wants their movies on
yeah.
DVD, you
Yeah,
know.
like, Doc Holliday was such a big success for us, the first one, and you can't get it on DVD except for like Germany, and I don't think those DVDs play here in the US. So, like on Amazon, you can see that they have a physical DVD, but it's like only available in Germany or something. But that was one that I was like, man, I thought that would have made some good money on DVD
Mm.
because that was a pretty big hit for us. That was a fun one. That was a fun project to do overall.
Which
Uh,
one was that?
Doc Holliday.
Because that's what I thought you said, and that's that one. I want to see it. It's on Tubi.
Yeah,
I want to see it at some point because I'm not a big Western fan. I'm not gonna lie. Like I
yeah,
just that was never my forte. But I do love like watching independent Westerns
yeah,
because they're fun. Like they take a little bit more liberty and they
yeah,
do. They have the acting may not be Val Kilmer, but it may
yeah,
be better than Val Kilmer. You never know.
yeah. Tom Zembrod plays Doc Holliday, and he was like to me born to play that role.
Mm.
Looked like him, acted like him. He gets a lot of comparisons to Val Kilmer, honestly, like everyone else. But a lot of people, especially on YouTube, which we can talk about that real quick. Like YouTube will tell you if your movie is good or not.
By the
IMDb,
trailers or
well,
reviews?
like Doc Holliday probably has 10 million views on YouTube,
Oh,
and
okay.
you will get a good kind of base of what people liked about it and what they didn't. And that's because it's people like you and me and Tiffany. It's normal people that just want to watch a movie. Sure, you got to watch ads and all this and that. They're not filmmakers. They're people that are looking for entertainment on a whatever night, and they see Doc Holliday. My dad used to like Doc Holliday. I'm going to check it out. What you're going to get on YouTube is probably, 10% of this movie sucked, the director sucked, the writing sucked, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to get 90% or whatever the other percentage was of honest opinions on the movie. And people will honestly say that Tom Zembrod did just as good, if not better, than Val Kilmer. Some people say that Tom was truer to the actual Doc Holliday than Val was. And what you're going to get on IMDb is the movie sucks. It's a one. Everything about it sucks. The writing, the directing, the acting, the producer. How the producer sucks and they know, I have no clue, but they're going to write it. So I've always advocated that IMDb is just a flaming turd, where
Mm,
anybody can go on there. And if you can put 250 words together, which my 11-year-old can, I can write a shitty review for your movie. What it is on YouTube is people that actually watch it and have something to say about it.
mm.
You know,
Uh,
eh,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
and what I was gonna say is like as a filmmaker when you rewatch the movie and you watch it like probably 100 times
Yeah,
or whatever while you're editing it and getting it all together, then you look at it and then you go this I know what sucks
yeah,
like I know what
yeah,
didn't work, I know what works so when somebody says stuff like oh this movie sucked, it's usually probably somebody didn't even watch it. They just
Yeah.
saw it
Yeah.
on online. There were some I've seen like reviews where the people said it sucked before it even came out, before they could
Sure.
have even seen it. So like
Yeah.
they weren't really reviewing it. They were just, I don't know, bombing it for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And then you see the people that really watched it, and they will point out the things that was wrong with it. And that usually doesn't bother me because I'm like, well, they're kind of telling me things I already know.
You already
But
knew. Yeah.
when they tell me things like I had a reviewer who once tried to tell me I needed to reshoot a short film I did just to add the things he liked.
For
And I
sure.
was like, no, dude. Like he was
Yeah.
writing this to me. He was because I asked him what his thoughts were, and he said, "Oh, you didn't do this. You didn't. You should go back and do this." I'm like, dude, you gonna give me the money to do that? And even if you did, I'm not gonna do it
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I made the movie I wanted to make. I'm usually happy by the end of it, even if it's not 100% what I wanted. I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah. It's film reviews are an interesting category in itself. Um, the DFW film community is small, everybody knows everybody's business, everybody hates everybody else. It's a very interesting dynamic because when you go to LA and you go to like the Produce By conference, it's very refreshing because you're sitting in a room with real movie producers, not just people that call themselves producers and aren't really producing anything. But you're sitting in a room with 1,000 other producers that really want everybody in that room to succeed. And then you come back to Texas and it's like you get on the hate train again, and the jealousy train. And I'm sure it's like that in Atlanta and Louisiana. It's probably worse here in DFW than anywhere. But, it's interesting to me because long story short, a couple of years back, I watched this movie that everybody was saying was amazing, made here in DFW. I didn't care for it. But God forbid if I were to say that I didn't care for this particular movie. I made enemies for life. Guys that 6 years later, will still submit to Tiffany to star in one of our movies, but will talk shit about you on IMDb and everywhere else because they didn't like that you didn't like their project. And
Hmm.
my whole thing is that's the whole business versus creative. Not everything that Jonathan does is for Brett to like.
Hmm.
And you have to have thick enough skin for Brett, who's not the jerk that's just going to go, the movie sucked, the movie's horrible, everything that will say, Jonathan, it wasn't for me. But I can appreciate that you put it together and finished it.
Hmm.
But that's not good enough for a lot of these people. They want to fill a theater at a film festival and get that pat on the back. So to me, it's like you want me to clap for you and talk shit about you on the drive home. I get it. But for me, I'm just going to tell you to your face, I didn't care for the movie. Doesn't mean that you're not a talented filmmaker or that you didn't accomplish something that most people can't. It's just that I didn't particularly enjoy the product. Who cares? Do you really think that Pepsi cares that I will take a sip of a Pepsi and go, I prefer the Coca-Cola? They don't give a shit, and I feel like that's how filmmakers need to be. Like, do what you do and don't care if anybody likes it.
Right.
I'll tell you the same thing I've told people time and time again. The only people I care about that like the product are the people that pay for it and my wife. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, if nobody else likes it, I really don't care. And I think that's where I catch a lot of flack, especially here, of being a jerk or, being an a-hole or whatever, is just that I'm just built a little bit different. I'm able to take the criticism and move on, and they're not. And so I just kind of keep my mouth shut. And
Mm.
it's hard. It's hard not to go down. The funniest thing, real quick, was when Copper Bill came out. It starred Dustin Rhodes, big wrestler.
Dusty
Uh,
Roads, yeah.
yeah, Dustin. He's a good friend of ours, and so he was in Copper Bill, and man, he was getting tore up on YouTube about his acting, which I thought was decent. And he would reply to everyone, eat shit, eat. And I'm just like, man, he spent probably 4 hours today telling everyone to eat shit. And so then I started doing it. And then Tiffany was like, you're going down this rabbit hole. And Tom Zembrov was like, just stop reading them. So now I don't even really read them. I do go on Letterboxd because those people are legit hilarious with their reviews.
They
And
really are. You know,
yeah.
I think I saw some for your films too that
Oh
were
man, we laugh. We were recently on a cruise ship in Alaska and just like one night had a couple drinks and we'll just open the letterbox and have a great time laughing at how angry people get over movies they don't like.
actually did not actually made me happy because I saw one of your I don't remember which one it was, but one of your movies that I looked on Letterboxd like yesterday, and there's a reviewer that reviewed my film and gave it a like just a half a star or whatever. Did the same on your film, and I was like, but your film's like legit better because it's got more
Yeah.
money and everything like that. So it actually made me happy because then I was
Yeah.
like, this guy just doesn't fit like our personalities or
Yeah.
whatever, you
Yeah.
know, and
You
stuff. And
don't
that's
get it.
fine. And you know, and that was the other thing about being a reviewer myself. I'm a reviewer. So,
Yeah.
and it's hard because I'm in the film industry. So when I'm a reviewer, I can be, you know, I'm honest, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
so this guy from Texas, I'm not going to mention, maybe we can compare notes later, but this guy from Texas sent me his film, and I you know, he sent me his film. He sent me swag with it. You know, right? And I think he thought I was gonna love it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and me and my friend watched it, and we're like, this is very like Rob Zombie like and stuff. And we
Mhm.
just weren't into that. You know,
Yeah.
and we even said that. We said this is not our cup of tea. This seems to be everybody else's cup of tea. Like everybody else seems to rave and review this movie well, but we just weren't into it. And we left that like it was like a 15 to 20 minute review. We got unfriended by the guy like that same day or whatever.
Oh,
Later he friended me back because he knew I was coming back to Texas Brightmare and didn't want to make things, you know, awkward, I guess. But
hey,
I was
you
like,
took a minute to
yeah,
chill. And
yeah, and you realized, I think you realized, but you didn't have my co-host back. My co-host is a little bit more brash, and you know, he's not
yeah,
afraid because he's a archaeologist at a at a Fort Monroe. So he just that's not his, you know, he's not a
sure.
filmmaker by trade, but he does help me with my stuff and everything
Yeah, for
and whatnot.
sure. I mean,
So
hey, you've got to be able to take the criticism or it's
absolutely.
not the business for you whatsoever. You know, we were just doing an Aladdin project. It's a two
Hmm.
movie thing for Aladdin and
I'm surprised you didn't do three. Like, you
yeah,
know.
well, you know, in the credits it says Aladdin may return. It's pretty funny because at the end of the first one it says Aladdin will return, and then at the end of Aladdin's Revenge it's like Aladdin will return, and then it's like maybe, you know, I don't know.
Maybe.
They haven't asked for a third one, but you know, we had a filmmaker there that was a crew member, and God, he just would not stop asking me to watch his short film, and I just have no interest in, and because I'm focused on, you know, this
Not when
Aladdin
you're
thing.
filming something, like you
Yeah,
just
I'm
don't have
just
time for
like,
that.
you know, and I was like, when we're done, just send me a link. And he was like, no, I want to show it to you on the screen. And I'm like, oh God, you know, and he showed it to a group of people there and they gave him some honest, like, we did not care for it. And he got really mad. And I'm just like, why did you ask? Because it's very rare that a movie I love, everybody else loves it. Tiffany hates a lot of the movies I love, and I don't like
Uh-huh.
a lot of the ones, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, why is everybody so hung up on what someone else thinks about? I mean, I know why. It's because social media has reduced us all to, you know, a bunch of minions fighting for
Likes.
everybody's
I
approval,
mean, yeah, likes.
you
Oh,
know.
my. Every time I do this, like a thumb thing, like all of a sudden it
Comes
shoots
up.
out a thumbs up
That's
on
funny.
Zoom. It's a little annoying, you know.
It's all good.
But yeah, so like that's the thing. Social media has made us people pleasers. We
Yeah.
have to like and I was already a people pleaser before this, so it's made it even worse for me. And I have to step back a lot of times and go, you know, if that person doesn't like me, you know,
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of people who don't like me, whatever. I don't, I gotta not care about that, you
Yeah.
know. If they're talking trash about me, that's fine. I mean, you know, but it takes a thick skin and it takes somebody, you know, all
Yeah,
that.
I'm trying to think of I had a good example. I can't remember. Maybe you remember the show. It was a show about the making of The Godfather.
Oh yes, the what was that called?
I can't remember.
Uh, but
It
yeah,
was
no, I know what you're talking
it
about.
was
It
really good. The Offer,
The
right?
Offer,
Yeah.
yes.
So like the Offer to me was a great show, and I remember watching that and thinking like most people hated him, but to me, Robert Evans, okay, was the pinnacle of a movie producer.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved everything about him. If I wanted to compare myself to someone, it would be Robert Evans. What I loved about him is he did not give a shit about your feelings. He cared about the studio. He cared about the product. He cared about how well it did. He cared about all these things that people in our business don't care about anymore. Now they care about how many people liked the trailer, did you get in deadline, or and all that stuff is great. Don't get me wrong. I love that we were in deadline for Minnie and all this and that. And but at the end of the day, like Robert cared about that studio and that The Godfather was a successful picture, and he pissed a lot of people off. But I loved just his demeanor. I loved the way he would just tell someone, sorry that you're wrong,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's a topic, that we kick around a lot. I think where we live in Texas it's a slow, kind of polite society. I come from the dirtier part of the country,
Yeah.
the
You said
armpit.
like New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, people from New Jersey are not nice. I mean,
No, they're not.
they're not. I mean, we all watch The Sopranos. That's how we are, like
Yeah.
you curse a lot and you kind of just tell people how you feel. And I think I don't fit into a lot of the culture here on that side. But at the end of the day, don't care,
Yeah.
and we just keep doing what we're doing. And the people that like you are your friends, and the people that don't, we're never going to be anyway,
Have
you
you
know.
have you seen The Kid Stays in the Picture?
I've heard of it. No, I've not
Oh my
seen it.
God, you gotta see it. If you're a big Robert Evans fan, it's his
Yeah.
story and
Okay.
it's narrated by him,
Awesome.
and stuff because it's based on his book and everything.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
mean,
pretty much like his book on in film and it's really
yeah.
cool.
I mean, he was amazing, but he wasn't very well liked.
No, no,
And so,
he wasn't like from the very beginning, to be
yeah.
honest. When he started as a actor or whatever,
Yeah.
he was a dick,
Yeah.
or whatever. But he was unapologetically himself, and that makes a good producer. At
Yeah, and
least that
that's
used to, make a
yeah.
good
And
producer.
and that's I mean, that's exactly who I am. And it's not always, the smoothest, sailing because of that. But man, I don't know. I would rather be who I am than be fake and you know, lie to people and tell them I'm one way when I go home and I'm another way.
Yeah, you don't
Um,
want to be hypocritical, but you do
yeah,
want and that's the balance you got to find at some point as a filmmaker because you don't want to be hypocritical, but you also, you might need money, from
sure. Yeah,
somebody or something. You might need this, you might need that, and you have to sort of fake it a little bit, but not, because it's kind of like a first
yeah,
date. You want to leave a good impression,
yeah,
but you don't want to be completely untruthful to who you are as a
for
person,
sure.
you know?
Yeah,
And so it's a great thing. I absolutely I want to see Aladdin. Can't wait to see Aladdin. I'm getting like because it's the market.
hmm,
The market tells us what we want. Market says we need another Amityville movie. We need
yeah,
another, these are what sells Shark movie. And now it's public domain characters like Popeye and
yeah,
Aladdin and whatnot. I mean,
yeah,
do you ever just like get tired that like, oh man, I had to do
yeah,
minis, now I have to do Aladdin, they're probably gonna want me to do a Popeye next,
yeah,
like do you get annoyed by that a little bit?
yeah. I
Like,
mean, we were never going to get into that public domain, rat race. There's groups that do it, have been doing it, do it really well. You
The
know,
Winnie the Pooh guys,
yeah.
they have
I
a
mean,
Pooniverse, which I think is
yeah,
hilarious.
which is a strange name. But yeah, they've been doing it really well for a long time, and you know, Minnie was an idea that was thrown at us, and we spoke to a producing partner that we work with a lot, and he was like, "I say we do it. Let's reap the rewards of it. Why not? See where it goes." And so I had an idea for Minnie for the character that I thought was good, and distribution liked it, and so we got the script approved, and we went into production, and then Derek and everyone kind of put the story out. Everyone was under a strict NDA. You couldn't take pictures on set. You couldn't tell anyone because the thing is, now that we're releasing Mini soon, there's going to be 400 mini movies coming behind it. They did it with, Steamboat Willie, and there's like three Popeyes, and so it's all about being the first of that character. And so, with Mini, we were like announcing it, and a lot of the publications took the liberty of thinking that we were part of this Pooniverse and part of Jagged Edge. And we were like, no, 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 guys, you got to take that down. Like, that's not true. This is a whole different continent.
Yeah.
And so there was that brief like, oh shit, we're not part of that. And we're not building our own.
Mm.
Aladdin was another thing. Aladdin is not what people think. They think Disney, they think Blue Genie. It's totally different. This is
Well, you're
like,
going by the original,
yeah,
story.
there's no character in it like a mini. There's no Princess Jasmine. There's no, magical red carpet or whatever, flying carpet. It's just basically the story of wanting things so badly and wishing for them, and then they literally come true, and it's a nightmare. Um, but I mean, the public domain thing, to Tiffany's credit, like years ago, she had an idea for one, and she was like, I think, she had this old book in our attic, and she's like, this would be awesome. And, of course, people were already doing them, but doing them really bad. And so we
Hmm.
were like, well, we have a good idea, but we never did that. And we do have another one um, that we've kicked around that I'm like, hey, um, I want to do. I just want the right partners for it. And then I have another one that I'm just like, F it, I'm gonna do it and do all the work and just make it because nobody else thinks it's a good idea except us. And so if nobody wants to help, then we'll do it ourselves. And if you're not going to be answering the phone when, I need help, don't expect me to answer it when it's successful. So, because I know it will be. It's just it just will be. But other people can't see it that way because they have their own agendas or they want to do one of their own or whatever. So, I don't love the public domain stuff. I don't love the horror genre. I don't want to do a lot of it. I don't think we're going to after this year. I think we're going to go back to our roots and do some stuff that we really like to do. And then just kind of let this public domain stuff die, which eventually it will, and
That's
the
that
market,
that's the thing. I don't see any more Amityville movies coming out, really.
no,
Not many.
there's really, I have a really good take on Robin Hood. That we have a script that an actor really likes, and we're going to talk to him about doing that. It's something you've never seen before, and it dances around the Robin Hood stuff. But other than that, I mean, if you look at the slate of people coming out to hit the public domain, I mean, you're talking like King Kong, Batman, Super. I mean, nobody's going to be making, and they'll just extend those copyrights before they become available anyway.
Right,
Um,
because there was that, like, I'm sure you've seen that thing is saying Superman and Batman are going to be in 19, or was it
yeah,
2035 or whatever
yeah. I
they're
mean.
coming.
There and everybody else that's coming, Betty Boop and all these characters, like there's nobody racing to see a Betty Boop movie.
Betty Boop
Um,
horror movie? I don't
I
know.
mean, I can see it, but I don't think you'd have as many people running. What I really think worked with Winnie the Pooh and Screamboat or, Steamboat and all these other ones, Peter Pan and all this, everybody loves giving Disney the middle finger.
Right,
And
yeah.
so but nobody's going to give Marvel the middle finger because nobody can make a Batman or a DC movie better than Marvel or DC. I mean, you just can't, you know.
Right. I mean, you
Um,
don't even try, really. You shouldn't
yeah, I
try. Just
mean,
make
but I
your
mean,
own.
with Winnie the Pooh, I mean, they did a great job on those budgets, making those movies entertaining, you know. But if I was like, hey, we're gonna do a Batman movie tomorrow, it'd be a piece of junk, you know, compared to the Batman movie with Robert Pattinson. I mean, you know what I mean? It's
I mean,
just,
that's what made like the Banana Splits movie good,
mhm.
is they took the Banana Splits thing and they made it a horror film and
Yeah,
everything. And then that's what Winnie the Pooh. They took Winnie the Pooh, something that
yeah,
everybody loves and everything, and just made it something scary and everything.
yeah,
But you know, I don't know. I was getting kind of sick of it after Winnie the Pooh. I'm not
yeah,
gonna lie, and obviously I'll still check out your stuff and everything,
yeah,
but it's just, after a while, it's just like seeing so many Amityvilles. It's like seeing so many shark movies. It's like seeing
yeah,
all these things. After a while, it's like everybody's making one. Why do I care anymore? Like, I
yeah.
don't,
I
like, you're
think what
not,
Yeah, I totally get it. You know, I haven't seen Peter Pan's Neverland Nightmare. You know, we work very closely with ITN, so like
they
they're
distribute that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're EPs for those. So I do like to watch their stuff, and but I haven't seen that one. It was in theaters, but we didn't catch it. Bambi was in theaters, but we didn't catch it because they're only playing like a couple times, and now that's on VOD. But what's interesting about Bambi is, you know, they took that to another level where it isn't, you know, just slashers and mass. I mean, that's CGI and it's real CGI, you know, and it looks good. And from everything I've heard, I haven't seen it yet, is it's an entertaining movie, you know. And
Hmm.
so I think if you're going to do it now, it's going to be harder for you as a filmmaker to just put a mask on and start killing people. You've got to step your game up, you know. Um,
It's
which
very
I think we
true.
did with Minnie. I mean, and Minnie is someone in a mask killing people, you know, but um, we put a story behind it, you know. And I know I did a podcast a couple weeks ago with a horror guy, and you know, he was like, "Well, horror people are going to want to see that gore, and they're going to," and I'm like, "Well, there's gore in the movie, and there's some really disturbing stuff in the movie, but it also is a story that I think many of us can relate to as to why
Hmm.
she's doing all this stuff, you know." It's not just senseless. Two people are screwing in the woods and a knife comes through her chest. You know, there's a reason behind all these killings in Minnie's Midnight Massacre. So, and I think people will enjoy it. You know, will
Yeah,
the hardcore horror people like it? Probably not. You know,
maybe
um,
not. And then but even then, I honestly. So, when I grew up watching horror films, I grew up watching the 80s slasher films,
yeah,
Friday the 13th and whatnot. And then, when I wanted to make horror, I didn't want to make that. I wanted to
yeah,
make like horror comedies like Evil Dead or,
sure,
things like that, which I didn't even watch till I was older, because as a kid, can't watch that stuff. It gives me nightmares and shit.
yeah,
And so,
yeah,
as an adult, when I got to be an adult and got to understand how movies are made, and that like things aren't very scary, because I mean there could be a guy in the woods, with a hockey mask. I mean they
for
could do
sure,
in real life. It could, but most likely not,
yeah,
and everything.
yeah,
But he didn't come back from the dead,
yeah,
and stuff like that, So that's the thing. Like I gotta I had to understand that when I got to be an adult, I was like, I want to make more fun movies. Like, and then I started learning that a lot of these movies that I thought were fun had no human connection. You don't care for
yeah,
any of these characters.
yeah,
And so that's what I strive for too. I want to make
yeah,
sure that you care for the main character at least, or if you don't, then you care for the villain,
sure,
or
yeah,
you want to see the villain kill everybody, because
yeah.
really what
I,
Jason is.
You know, it's not a horror movie analogy, but you know, I think for me personally, the greatest character ever written for movies or TV was Tony Soprano, you know, on The Sopranos. And the reason being is here's a guy who's clearly the bad guy. that most people could relate to on one level because he has anxiety, he has depression, he has, family, he's got issues with the family, he's got issues with work. And here's a guy that for 7 years on TV never did a good thing, honestly, a good thing. But then he gets killed and the country's up in arms.
Hmm.
How can you kill Tony? Well, in real life, why would you want this guy around? And so to me, that was the most well-written character where you could take this evil, hurtful individual, make him relatable to the point that if something bad happened to him, you felt bad for the bad guy, like genuinely bad. And so, I mean, that's a series I've watched 3 or 4 times, because the writing is so good on it. And you could never write it today and get away with it on any network.
I
But
don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, well, I don't know if today. Today
no,
you might
no,
be
yeah,
right. But like
yeah,
a few years ago and whatnot, we had Breaking Bad,
yeah,
and stuff. And we had Sons of Anarchy. And we had all these shows where they were obviously bad people. But
yeah,
they had some, like, in Breaking Bad, he had like good in him. Walter White was a good person starting out, and then but he had like a shitty life,
yeah,
and everything. He realized he had cancer, so he's like, fuck this. I'm gonna do what I want to do. I want to take charge of my life, right? And so he becomes sort of a bad guy. He becomes a villain, almost kind of Lex Luthor with his bald head.
mhm,
And then,
yeah,
but he cared about his family. He had a good family, had good, these things. You cared for him,
yeah,
even
yeah,
though the whole time I'd rather him die than like some of the other people that ended up dying in the
yeah,
movie, in the show,
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. And I don't know. It was wonderful. I hate studios because then once they realize somebody is good like that, they don't want to, you know,
Sure.
they don't want to kill them off because
There's too
then
much money in keeping them alive.
yeah. So I don't know. Anyway, I love that. I love that you thought about that. That's
Yeah,
how you work your stuff because not many independent filmmakers think like that. They
yeah,
think what's
yeah.
gonna be just like the horror guy you said, the horror, it's gotta have all that gore, have all this stuff or nobody's gonna care. That's not true.
All right. Agreed.
There are people who watch horror films because they actually want something good. They want gory stuff. Go watch Terrifier, which is wonderful, but that's where you're gonna get it.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't have to be every film, and I
Sure.
don't want it to be every film.
Yeah, and that landscape is, man, that horror movie genre is ever changing. Ever,
Right.
and it splits and it goes in different, elevated horror versus, terror porn and all this other stuff. And I don't have any desire to do any of that stuff, to an extent, I do think of the future and, having children and of my own, I would like for them to be watching the movies we make, certain ones. I don't know that I'd let my family watch the pickleball murders, but just because of the language. But, that was something with the horror genre I don't have any interest in is these over the top gore fests, and in Mini we try to appease. There's nudity and there's drug use but again, it's all done. The nudity is sort of tasteful, there's one tasteful one and one that's just like, what the fuck did I just watch.
Yeah.
Um, but we just try to make everybody happy and you
Hmm.
won't, so who
No.
cares, you know?
I mean, once you get to that point where you're like, fuck pleasing everybody,
Yeah,
I still have to get there. Like, there's times where I'm just like, I want to please everybody, and you're not going to, but I don't. That doesn't stop me from trying,
yeah,
and
yeah,
everything. And I still gotta tell people like, you may say something to me that might be exactly what I need to hear, but most likely I'm not gonna need to hear it till like, a couple years down the road or
yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah.
And but I always appreciate everybody's advice,
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah.
like that. I'm sure you're the same way. There you might get some advice from somebody and then you might be like, that's great advice, but I'm not gonna listen to it. I'm gonna do
Sure.
my thing
Yeah.
and Well, now that's wonderful.
It happens all the time, and I will say this real quick is, to that point, could be you or anyone else is listening or whatever, but we had a longtime collaborator that we worked with all the time and we're shooting a movie and there's a big Hollywood actor in it and I felt like this collaborator, this crew member was trying to like puff their chest up in front of this Hollywood name and be like, look what I'm doing. Look what and I would
hmm
be like, listen, this is the shot I want. When I come back, it needs to be set up. And it wasn't. And I blew my lid. Like, and I rarely blow it on set, but I was just like going off. And our, AD at the time was like, wow, I was like, I don't care. I want what I want. It's important. There's a lot of money on the line with this movie and stuff. And so when we wrapped production, he sent me this long email about how hurt he was and embarrassed he was, and he's been on 100 movie sets and that's never happened, and we've done 10 movies together and it's never happened. People were coming up to him and asking him if he was okay, which was all BS.
hmm
And what I told him and I have the email, I'm sure, is I said, listen, so and so, I said, you want to be a movie director. You don't want to be a director of cinematography. You don't want to be a cinematographer. You want to call the shots. So go do it. And he's like, how can you say that? How we've made all these projects together. I said, because now at the end of the day, you can't say that nobody told you to go be a movie director. I just
hmm
told you, and I've never worked with him since. And
Did
what
he
is he
go be
doing?
is he doing that?
He's done like 3 or 4 directing projects. So,
Good.
even when I don't like you, because I didn't like him for that, I'm still saying, like, look, I'm giving you an honest moment of you don't want to be working for me, go work for yourself.
hmm
So, do with that story what you will, but like, it's just the hard truth. Like now this guy's out there doing what maybe he was born to do because I had to be an asshole and basically fire him, and be
Right.
like, I'm never going to work with you
You
again
set
because,
him free.
yeah. And then the flip side to all that, is that's happened a few times it always happens with cameramen
Yeah.
because that director of photography, just having that word, I think, director, and it gives them some sense of power, which they, to me, have power over the camera, but not over the set and not over the actor. And so, there was another cameraman that we had the same issue where he just wanted to call the shots. And I was like, if you want to go be a director, you don't need my blessing, but I'm cool with it. But just know that the CEO of Chevrolet and the CEO of Ford don't hang out regularly and
hmm
make cars together. So you are now a competitor. And so I treat you as a competitor. I can be nice to you and friendly, but I'm not going to help
hmm
and I tell a lot of people that because there's very few that I'm like, forget all that. You're a good friend. I have a few of those. Um, there's one doing a movie right now, and I'm like, I'll help him because he's done a lot for me in my career, and I like him. But there are other ones where you're just like, you're a competitor now. Don't ask me for help. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
just is what it is.
Well,
But
I
anyway,
mean, yeah, hey, that's how it is with anybody in the especially the film industry. Yeah, I hate to say there's just egos, that clash because one person, like, I work with a lot of the same DP for most of my projects and stuff, and we've gotten to like a thing where it's very easy for me to tell him what to do. You know, and I
sure.
just say,
Yeah.
hey, can you go here and do this? He does not correct me. He doesn't say whatever. And it's the easiest. But then I worked with one guy who's like telling me he can't shoot from over there or whatever, right? And giving me, stuff.
Yeah.
And I haven't worked with that guy, and it's not because he's a bad DP. He was a great DP. He was wonderful. It's just I can't work with people who, charge me a lot of money and then treat me like or they're my boss,
Yeah.
and stuff,
Sure.
right? And
Yeah.
so I just, the director is the director. DP, can help with, figuring out shots or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's the director's choice,
Yeah,
what happens.
I agree 100%. And the only person I'm worried about on set is Tiffany, the
Mm,
on-set producer. Other than that, I don't really answer to anybody. And if you're on set and you don't want to answer to anyone, then you're in the wrong position and you need to go be the movie director and deal with all the bullshit that I don't think people understand the director has to deal with.
mm,
It's not a very glamorous thing
no,
managing a crew of 10 personalities and a cast of 10 personalities. And that's 20 different personalities that are coming to you with needs and wants and questions. And, it can be overwhelming. And I'm just like, hey, man, if you're meant to do it, go do it. And,
exactly.
but there's that line in the sand that I draw for my own mental well-being that you're competition now, and I can't treat you the same as I did when you worked for me. You know, I got it. It sounds terrible when you say it out loud, but
Yeah,
I justify it by, you know, any other business, the two CEOs are not gonna share their intimate secrets with each other.
Marvel
And
and DC do not work together,
no, they don't,
and it's understandable. I mean, you look at James Gunn going from being in Marvel and then being fired and then being
Mhm.
re brought back and then now he's the head of, DC Films, DC Studios. He was that guy who he worked hard, he was good, he did his job, but then he became, in a way, even though they're still friends, so to speak, I don't think they are as good of friends as they actually act like they are because, of course, they can't say that they're
Yeah,
enemies now or
yeah,
anything. But like James Gunn is out there, he knows all the secrets.
yeah,
He knows all the stuff. So he
yeah.
isn't, in a way, he is an enemy.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many seats at the table. There's only so much food on the table. And we all have to eat, and sometimes that means losing those relationships. It just is what it is.
Mm.
And you can do your best to just turn the other cheek and politely not talk. I think that's why when you were saying earlier, like they just don't say no or yes, they say nothing. I think it's because that's the Hollywood nice way of saying no, is not saying nothing, you
Right.
know.
Because if
So
yeah, I mean, I was told there was a producer looking at one of our scripts, and we were told that if we didn't get a reply, for like 2 weeks, most likely means a no. But
yeah,
but it turned out that that producer is just busy, and they did get around to reading the script, and thank God.
sure.
But
Yeah.
like, and they loved it, but the problem is the market. They didn't have anybody to sell it to right now, and
Yeah.
that really sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks because it's a more expensive movie, and we could probably make it cheaper, but it would take a lot of out of it, and
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
Good.
I mean, I'm the writer of it. Like I'm not trying to produce it. And then that producer is trying to get us to produce it, basically. And I'm
Mm.
just like, I don't want to do that. Like that's not,
Sure.
that I'm not for that big project and
Yeah. I don't
whatnot.
blame
But
you.
I'd talk to you more about it after, but I don't want to like
Sure. Yeah.
say
Yeah.
anything too big on it. But anyway, I do want to ask one more question, and then I'll probably wrap this up. But we were talking earlier about sort of new media kind of coming into everything technologies. You mentioned AI and all this other stuff, but like social media, stuff and everything. Is your company really big at doing that stuff, like getting things out on Instagram and getting attention and hype for the next movie? Like,
Yeah.
I'm guessing
It's
Tiffany does that.
Yeah, she does all of that. She
Yeah.
handles the B22 social media. We have another subsidiary of B22 for specific projects, which is called Sand Dollar Pictures, which we just did our inaugural uh, kind of product for that, which was the Veil movie that should be releasing hopefully by the end of the year. So that's like a whole different genre, a whole different budgeting type of thing from B22. So she's got those two. She's got all the Instagram, the TikTok, all the crap I don't have. I don't think either of us use Twitter anymore or whatever it's called now because
X.
it's just too much, hate and stress on there. Like it's
And
too
it's
many.
politics and
Man, there's
it's
too many opinions. Nobody freaking
yeah.
cares. And so we got rid of that, although we used it for certain things with Minnie and so but it is important. I think social media is we talk about it all the time, let's just get rid of it, but then we're like, well, we need it because it's kind of connected to IMDb and the promotion of the films and the Producers Guild stuff is on there. And so it's just a necessary evil for us. I don't think either of us really care about it. Um, I think if we could hire a company to do it, you would, but we're just not to that level where it's needed yet. But that is another thing is just if you're making a movie, who promotes it, and how do you promote it and how do you pay for the promotion? And that's one of the reasons that we don't like to do a self-distribution deal is because it ends up being, if you break down what you're going to make off that distribution deal and just take the marketing hours, the making the posters in 15 different sizes for every platform, the dubbing, the transcriptions, all of the music cue sheets, all of this stuff, you're making less than minimum wage at that point. And it's like you can go work at Chick-fil-A and make more money than that, and not be as stressed out. So, most of our movies are sold before we even set foot on set, and
Hmm.
so there is no pressure. It's just make a good product. But the social media and the marketing, that's more of a Tiffany thing. But for me, I think the only reason it's really important for our company is for the promotion of it. I mean, has it gotten us anything? I don't know. I know we don't make a lot of money off of it. I can tell you that. Um,
It's an interesting thing these days. And
yeah,
I've been researching like what Marvel does and stuff, just because I want to see what the
yeah,
big people do. And one of the things I noticed that they're very smart with now is teasing things,
sure.
and everything. So they got the new Avengers Doomsday movie that's being shot right now. And like the Russo brothers just like, shot put something up that was, cryptic,
Yeah,
and they're like new
yeah,
teaser coming soon and
yeah,
everything like that. And it's just hype, but you got to hype up a year and then keep hyping up throughout the next year and everything. And I'm guessing like that would be stuff like with your like Rumpelstiltskin movie or
yeah,
something. You have to
yeah,
do that in order to get people to go rent it or if you guys get in the theaters,
yeah,
have people sitting their butts in the seats. And
yeah. It's a fickle thing because if you do it once, January 3rd, you put a teaser out for Rumpelstiltskin, and then the movie's not coming out till Halloween. There's all that time where somebody needs to be promoting the film, teasing it again, new posters, stills, exclusive this. Like, who has the time to do this? And to me, it's like doing an Indiegogo campaign. Like, who has the full-time job of running an Indiegogo campaign? Not me.
mm,
And so who has a full-time job of promoting a movie for a year before it comes out? Disney has that job and people that they could pay to do it, but you and I are not going to do that. And
right,
so you just be smart about it. Maybe you put out some official posters, some stills, then maybe a teaser, then the trailer, and then the movie needs to come out,
right.
or it falls off that cliff of irrelevancy. But that's a whole, man, I don't know. We always joke around like I don't know how they did it back in the day when they didn't have Facebook,
Hmm.
and Instagram, and they still promoted movies in the newspaper, on TV, things like that. It's, you had to read about it, and I mean, look at movie times for God's sake. You used to go to the newspaper and see, and now it's on this thing and it's everywhere. So. It's there and it's important for certain things, but to me, it's just like it is what it is, you know.
Is this like what Clerks came out in 93 and that movie at the time got promoted pretty good because
Yeah.
Miramax had the money to sort of get it out there. They
Yeah.
got it out into magazines and was it and different stuff. But then you look at Mallrats, which I don't know how much you like that movie or not, but like that movie bombed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
did not do well, and because it was marketed the wrong way,
Yeah.
and everything. And independent filmmakers don't really know how to market normally anyway. We're especially like creative people who we just want to make the movie. We're not thinking, okay, we're creative,
Yeah.
like we're gonna go make a freaking. I made a trailer for my next Scary Story Slumber Party, Volume 2, and I pretty much just modeled it after the other things I've seen,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
everything. And it didn't do very well. Like it's got only like a
Sure.
hundred views,
Yeah.
and I thought it was going to do a lot better. And it is what it is. Like
Yeah.
you just don't. I don't have the money to go. Well, let me get it on Facebook and
Yeah.
do all those ads for it and
And how
stuff.
much of that actually works? There's no way for you to quantitatively look at the numbers and know that it's working. I don't care what anybody says. They can give you insights all day, but it doesn't mean that Facebook or Meta or whatever isn't manipulating the data anyway.
Yeah,
So, you know, uh, save your money, and figure out another way or find a
yeah,
distributor that'll do it for you,
yeah.
you know.
I'm sure ITN helps you out with that a lot. And
Yeah, I mean they do 90% of that stuff. And the funny part is like they'll take a movie and I'll think I just came up with the greatest title and the greatest poster art, and they'll take it and change the title and put a tornado on it, with a helicopter blowing up over New York City, and the movie takes place on a farm in Texas. But at the end of the day, it's about driving eyes to that film and the
then
money that comes
they
off
know
of it.
what they're doing
They
with
know what they're
that.
doing, and it'll piss a lot of producers off and stuff. Well, because the movie I'm talking about was called Funnel, and it was, it's psychological drama about a guy that's seeing a tornado in his nightmares, and it's a lot like Take Shelter, and they changed the title to Texas Twister and
I
threw a
was thinking
tornado
that was
on it.
the one because that's
And
the only one I know that you did a
yeah,
Twister one.
and it's very successful. More successful than if I kept the name Funnel and had John Schneider's face on the cover. It is what it is. So you got to swallow your pride a little bit and say, okay, it's for the benefit of everybody that's making money off the project,
Do you do the like visual effects yourself? Like,
On some of them, I farm a lot of it out. And now with AI, I mean, look, I'm a proponent for AI. I'm not saying I want it to take over our jobs and people to lose work over it. But if I can use it to make my life easier in the parts of the film that I can control, not replace those parts, but help those parts, I'm going to use it. I mean, you'd
mm,
be foolish to be like, I mean, I had an argument on the Aladdin set with this fool that just was like, AI is degenerative crap and all this and that. And I'm like, says the guy that doesn't know how to use it. Like it can do so many things for an independent filmmaker if you could just get your head out of your ass and stop worrying about actors and just worry about yourself.
mm,
If you're a producer that has to schedule a project, man, ChatGPT can help you schedule that project in a fraction of the time that it
mm.
took you to do before that was around. But if you're too worried about your friend who's an actor that might lose one job over a CGI character, guys, like, come on, like stay in your freaking lane and just do your
Well,
job. And it's just
yeah.
one of these hot topics, Hollywood overcorrections, that eventually won't mean anything anyway. Um, like all their movements that fizzle out. So I just think people with the AI thing need to chill out. And people go, well, how can you say that? Well, because I, as a producer guild member, actually went and took 9 weeks of AI classes, and learned the legalities of it and learned how to use it. Now, Runway versus Midjourney and Sora and all these other projects. And it is an absolute great tool to assist you in doing your job. Just like the people that loved the fax machine until the PC came out. You're gonna
Mm.
have to learn to use it, or you're gonna be a dinosaur. Like, just get off your high horse and learn how to use it the best way you can. That's it. That's my soapbox with that. But it is the future, so you either need to get on board with it or you find another job, you know.
I totally agree with you. And on that thing, because like I think that the problem people are having a lot of is with the art. Some of it, so some of ChatGPT uses other people's artworks, and it's illegal. It's a legal
Yeah,
thing. And I mean, because you don't want to sell something that you're going to possibly get sued over selling and
sure.
everything. So there's that stuff. And I'm 100% okay. Sure, should not make a logo or something
Yeah,
with ChatGPT now. Let's work on trying not to do that. But asking ChatGPT to help me, like you said, schedule, but like, you know, business plans. I fucking
yeah.
don't know how to do a business plan, but
No,
it goes in and fixes these things and does all the work
yeah,
for me. I can give it to a producer or an investor, and they look, or well, this looks legit.
yeah,
Most people won't read it. They just want it. They just want to look at it and say, okay, what do we need? We need, how is this going to make us money? That's
yeah,
and I don't know much about ROI, but
yeah,
I know like I can ask them, how can we get an ROI on this project? They tell me how to do it, and then, we go in that way. So like
yeah.
I like it for that stuff or brainstorming ideas that I have or something like that.
Sure.
But
Yeah,
I don't want it to write my scripts for me because
for
that takes
sure.
it takes the fun out of everything,
Yeah, yeah,
But I do want it to make sure that my script doesn't have like errors or stuff, things like that. So there's
yeah.
these
It's
tools.
it's assisting. It's like a hammer. It's a tool, and you don't use it for everything. You don't use it to screw, to screw something in. You use it to
Mm,
hammer a nail. And it's just, man, we get into these arguments about AI this and AI that, and I'm just like, man, I mean, I know a lot about AI because I've studied it, and I've been graded on it, and I've created things with it for scores, and the business is just going to be rooted in it. And there are just jobs that are going to go away. I think film composers are going to go away. I mean, I hate to say it, but unless you're okay working for pennies, they're going to replace you. I think a lot of visual effects will be replaced and stuff like that. But what these people should be doing, instead of going on social media complaining about it, is learning how they can intertwine their artwork and their art in their mind with artificial intelligence and figure out a way to use it to elevate what they do. And, if I was 18 right now, I wouldn't be going to college. I would be going to some school on artificial intelligence. It is the future, and
mm,
it pains me knowing what I know about the back end of it, the money you can make in it, the right way, and the industry is changing from just do whatever the hell you want to how can we do whatever we want from a legal standpoint. There are companies now that can content ID the shit out of your stuff to make sure that you're not using stuff you shouldn't be using. But they don't talk about that on social media. They just talk about how horrible it is.
mm.
They don't talk about the people making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year off training models with AI. They don't talk about that because it's legal. They want to talk about the illegal part of it, and the two actors that lost jobs last year. I mean, come on, like it's just AI can help actors. It can help you memorize lines. It can help you with give you auditioning tips. But they're so stuck on this, the art, the art, the art, the art, the art. Hollywood is a business, people. It's not art. I mean, I hate to be ugly about it. It's a business,
All
you
film
know?
is business. Like,
Exactly.
this is what pisses me off the most too, is like people think, you're making, like, if I just wanted to make movies with my friends and my backyard, that's wonderful. And
Yeah,
I think ITN has some of those movies
for
too,
sure.
like people going out there and just making movies in their backyard, and they have no plan to like do this for a living, and that's,
Yeah.
but like one of my friends is Steve Rosinski. He's a filmmaker, did movies like Carousel and stuff like that. And he just did a Popeye movie, but it wasn't a horror film. Didn't
Hmm.
get the same attention that Popeye the Slayer Man did, which another friend of mine did
Yeah.
produce. That one is on Tubi. His film is not,
Yeah.
because Tubi is now cracking down on, because I think during 2020 they just accepted everything,
Yeah.
and now they're just being
Yeah.
like, you know what, let's be a little bit more careful what we put out independently wise. And I hope they do. Like, I
Yeah, for
literally,
sure.
because there's a lot of crap on there. Like, I hate to say it, we review a lot of it, and stuff, because our show is called Indie Film Cafe, and we have a stinkometer scale,
That's funny.
1 to 10, 10 being very, very stinky. And, and we'll be honest. If we don't like something and we think
Yeah.
something's bad,
Yeah. I
gets us
get it.
into a lot of trouble, but,
Good for
um,
you.
but anyway, I just want to say thank you so much. This
Yeah,
was
for sure.
awesome chat, and I hope people got a lot out of this, because I did. I hope a lot of people understand. I mean, I guarantee you'll always probably get backlash about the AI thing, no
Yeah,
matter
for
what.
sure.
And
Yeah.
that's just gonna happen. Was it Gary Vee's been, I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk or know of him, but he goes around promoting AI and saying
Mhm.
this is the way of the future, you know?
Yeah.
This
It
is
just
it.
is,
Yeah.
and I love to argue that point with people that hate it because there's no answer to this is the way of the future. Because what can they say? Well, then you better go find a new career because it is the way of the future. And in 10 years, you won't be standing here talking to me.
Right.
But I'll be standing here because I understand now that this is where it's headed and let's find a way to use it. And it's frustrating. That whole conversation gets me worked up because it's like just get over it.
I mean, I'm very neutral on things, because I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT, and
Yeah,
I talk
me too.
to I talk to ChatGPT like every day,
Yeah,
asking questions, especially trying to figure out how to do things, independently, but have like I want to eventually work for like a company like Marvel, or own a company like Marvel,
uh-huh.
that big. And the only way to do that is to make movies. People don't realize this, but the real big way is to do stuff like what you're doing, where it's making money, getting attention. You make the right movie, Hollywood's gonna see it, and they're gonna be
Yeah,
like, who's this guy? He's not on our
yeah,
radar. Let's get him
yeah.
in the office and
It
make
really
him a
only takes
deal.
one,
Yeah.
you know.
And it really does take one. Like, you look at James Wan working with these other people who've come on his movies. They made one independent film that blew up, but they might have made like 20 other independent films that didn't blow up, but
Yeah,
this one did. And he's like, hey, come direct another Annabelle movie or something.
yeah. No,
And
absolutely.
it's just like it's happening. Hollywood loves independent filmmakers because they want to steal the competition,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
They
Yeah,
don't want you going and competing against them.
yeah,
They want you on their team and everything. But so it's the thing. Like, people don't think that way. People think, oh well, you either have to be Hollywood or you have to be independent. And I think there's a middle ground where you can be independent but aim for Hollywood.
sure.
And from what I've seen from your stuff, like your newer stuff, Hydra and the stuff that you're doing right now, I just think that you're heading that way. Like, you're trying to make something that people see and go, "Wow, this is better than the stuff that's sort of being, done in indie world right
Yeah,
now." But
yeah,
you know, but you're still an indie,
yeah,
still
for
doing it
sure.
yourself. So.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Brett. And
I appreciate it.
yeah, this is awesome. I hope everybody checks out your films. A lot of them are on Tubi. So they just look you up, and weirdly enough, I think I was on my Roku on my TV. Did not, when I looked up your name, it gave me a bunch of other like Brents and other things. Then I looked it up on my phone and I could find your stuff very,
Yeah,
it could
yeah,
be so weird.
it is.
So just looking stuff up, go on your IMDb. Like I said, yeah, like I saw like 60 movies you've directed, so that's
Oof, yeah,
incredible. Like, and in
yeah,
that short amount of time too. It's not like you've been doing this for 60 years,
yeah,
and did one
yeah,
movie a year. It's like you've been doing this for like 15 years or so, something like that, or
yeah. It's been a long time.
yeah, but still, I mean, 60 movies, that's long. There's a lot out of it. So, um, maybe you shouldn't quit till you're saying something about retiring, when like in 5 years, you don't know. I'm like, get to 100, get to
Yeah,
100.
let's
Yeah,
see what
that's a good
happens
enough.
by 100. You know,
Yeah, we'll see how you feel by then. But,
that's only like 2 years.
yeah, that's what it feels like, right? You know?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes it does, but
So thank you so much. And
I appreciate it.
everybody else, check his work out and let us know what you guys think. And we'll have you back sometime. Maybe once
Cool.
another projects come out that you want to
Yeah, you ought to
talk
have
about.
Tiffany on here.
Yeah, I
She'll
saw her.
tell
She's been
you,
running back and forth, so
yeah.
saw her. But
She's
I
like, when are
didn't.
you gonna get off this thing and get back to work?
Oh, that's the whole thing. Okay,
Yeah, I'm
because
just
she's trying to keep you on your toes about that. All
yeah,
right.
she'll tell you some juicy stuff.
Okay, we'll definitely have her back on then. And then you'll be in the other side,
Yeah,
listening to her.
I'll have my popcorn.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. And everybody else, join me in 2 weeks for another episode. Until then, everybody, have a good one. Bye.